Okay, my accent is a mixture. I was born in Yugoslavia. My parents were Hungarian. I grew up in South America, so you figure it out. I don't know.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. This is our 7th episode, and if you can't tell by the tone of my voice, it's one of the most excited I've been so far to shoot this podcast. We have very special guests here this week. Before we get to them, Benny, say hello.
Hi, I'm representing both Fine brothers today.
He is 2 Fine brothers in one. You only get 1 Fine brother in this podcast.
Well, when you have 2 guests as good as this, you can only have two Fine brothers is too much.
Exactly. We're actually a surplus of Fine brothers right now because we have 2 very special guests this week. We have Rock, say hello.
Hello, guys out there, we love you.
And Vera, say hello.
Hello, how are you all? Nice to be talking to you.
We have two of the
longest running members of Elders React, yeah.
Really?
Rock, you were episode 1, you were episode 2.
Prehistoric.
Was I in episode 2?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're so excited to talk to you guys. We got a bunch. We posted on our Instagram and Twitter earlier today to get questions for you. We're going to get. I'm so excited. I can't even talk. We're going to get to those questions in a second. But for the people that might just be checking us out for the first time, welcome to the show. This is what we have affectionately deemed the FBE Podcast. And it is a show for the 5% of our audience that we think is actually super interested in hanging out with people for more than the 10 minutes or less that some of our bigger series tend to run. This is, you can hang out with us for much longer behind the scenes, find out what's going on at the company. We talk about questions you guys have sent in or questions for the guests. We talk about the industry questions you might have for YouTube. And then we get into some feedback that's come, or noticeable feedback that we've seen from the last week of the various releases and videos.
Bottom line, if you care more about like how we make what we make, you listen to this podcast. And that is maybe 5%.
We know it's
but
not.
We love them.
See, you guys are used to getting a lot of views. You guys are used to getting seen by millions of people. That's not going to be a problem for you on this show. But the people that are going to watch and listen
are the ones that care the most.
Are going to be so excited to hear what you guys have to say.
They've been asking for elders ever since the podcast started.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll eventually get some kids on a future podcast or something.
That'd be interesting. I have a quick question before we get into this. When did you first know what a podcast was?
5 minutes ago when I told you.
About 4 weeks ago, because I looked on Facebook and it said, here's the FBE Podcast, and I took a look. But I still don't quite sure what it is.
Hey, what about you, Rock? Do you know what it is?
When you guys called. Yeah, I'm high tech. I am so low tech. Yeah.
So now that you're here and you're actually doing it right now, you're like, I don't know what a podcast is, but you're on a podcast right now. Do you get it or you still not get it?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like doing a radio show.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Like a talk show.
Yes. But yeah, it's been a thing for a while, but it's definitely become very, very popular, and there's communities all around podcasts because for a lot of people, it's for their drive, similar to the radio and things like that, but it's like people they like and they're getting information or stories, or you're more into podcasts than I am even.
We're so excited that any of you that are listening or watching this right now are hanging out with us, because we really just wanted to make a better attempt to connect and talk and answer questions and introduce you to more of our fabulous friends and family that we know, whether it's reactors or YouTube friends or what have you. And so, yeah, that's kind of the core of what we're doing, and we're excited you guys decided to hang out after hours with us.
I'm going to keep going, John, and keep holding you up because... obviously I have a great relationship with everybody, but like very specifically with both of you, like I feel like because you are from a time where me and Rafi were always in the room,
Yes.
like we have a closer relationship than some of the newer elders on the cast, some of which I've not even been able to meet yet. So there's a lot of, both of you have inspired me a lot in my life from knowing you over the years, in the sense of Rock, you're being such a business owner all the way until this point. And obviously as we've been growing the business and like seeing how much you care about the people who work for you and like how important that is to you and the concerns that you've had has been something that has stuck with me of like, well, Rock did this and he cares about having a company. I can do it too. So I just want to thank you for kind of that side of, among many other things you've said to me over time, the business side of it is something that I very connect with you on.
Oh, that's very, very kind of you. Yeah. There's that saying, People are known by the company they keep. And a company is known also by the people they keep. And you guys keep some really good company. I mean, what a great endeavor, what a great journey. You guys have just, especially in the last couple of years, you've exploded. And it's really precious that you can see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
And you guys have put in the time, you put in the hours.
I don't think they realize it a lot of time because they're still in so much of the day-to-day that sometimes every couple of months or so I'll try and kind of jab at them or something to take a step back or something, or just appreciate, or walk around, or just and just look at what has been able to happen through primarily because of the people listening to this right now. There's no great or fascinating or some sort of superpower that's happening here. We built something and we created some shows that we liked making, but the audience out there and the people, the viewers and listeners out there that can hear this right now, they're the only reason that any of us are sitting here. I say a lot that
right people talk about new media and how people like us and other peers of ours kind of built a new form of entertainment. True, but it wouldn't have been possible without people adopting it also. So everyone that watches all of the stuff that we all make together, they're part of the innovation too, because they chose to watch in a new way. Just like TV or any of the other things that started. It's kind of all happens again.
And they choose to keep watching week to week, which
year
as you guys know,
year.
there's so much, even when we did that Netflix episode and you guys are like, there's this much content out there. There are so many YouTube channels and so many content creators, companies like FBE and dozens and dozens and hundreds. And so the fact that we even have this 5% or the people that watch Elders React or any of our series every week, year in and year out, is such an incredible experience and very humbling for folks like myself, but also Benny and Rafi. I don't want to take anything away from them, because I can see in Rock's eyes, he's like, yes, but they're special and they did something great.
They are special.
But we all did it together.
And I don't want to take away from that, but it's part of the audience is definitely a huge reason why we're in the position that we're
I don't want to hold us up too much, but moving over to you, Vera, quickly. Something that when I found out about, and this was a couple of years ago, or maybe more than that I found out, and I know you still do things like this, fact that you travel so much and you go hiking up these crazy mountains now. This is something that you do. And I think I told you once that man, do I hope that when I continue to, I keep calling it growing up. I still feel like I'm growing up. So when I grow up.
Well, I still feel I'm growing up.
Yeah,
exactly.
Everybody's growing up, Benny.
Well, there you go. It's amazing to me what you do with your life and how into the hiking and the travel and can you talk a little bit, because people probably don't even know what you always do.
Well, my next plan right now with two of my friends, we want to go to Borneo to see the orangutans.
And you're just going to go?
We're going to go.
And you hiked mountains a couple years ago?
Yes, I did. I went to Mount Everest Base Camp, but it's more than a couple of years ago. But not so far away.
Yeah, still, I've never hiked anything, so I don't.
No, that's not true. In a previous podcast, Rafi has photographic proof.
Yeah, the photographic proof that when we went to Sequoia National Park once, went up not even that high, but there's higher elevations, and I don't know if I didn't drink enough water, I almost passed out. And it's true. And Vera, you once said something that I've mentioned a lot to people in terms of you saying that you still feel like you're growing up, and I don't remember which episode it was exactly, but I asked about something which I'm sure that we ask this type of question to you guys all the time of what is it like when there's an anniversary of something, and the reality of something is 40 years old now, but you were already an adult back when that had happened, and what is that like? And you said something along the lines of that you look in the mirror, you feel so the age means nothing, and then you realize, oh, I am this old, and how it just doesn't, the brain is not the reality of the body, and I think that's something that a lot of you feel as you get older.
Well, you look in the mirror and you're surprised. Who is that person there? I'm still 17. What happened?
You feel similarly, Rock?
Exactly. And my business, involves,
physical labor.
Physical labor. Oh, wow. And, I look at a project now and I'm a better pointer now, a better
get up in the tree.
Leader, supervisor, because...
Well, you worry me, because over the years, you've come in being I threw my back out because I was up in the tree. I'm what are you still doing in the tree?
Yeah, still trying to avoid a third back fusion, spinal fusion, because of a fall many, many years ago. But it's an exciting thing. and I love it. But you look in the mirror, like Vera said, and you see somebody that you hardly recognize, because your mind is always saying, "Hey, I can do this," or "I'm there," and I can engage. And your body says the next day, "That was a bad move, Rock. That one wasn't smart."
So
move on to the podcast? I'm sorry,
we're
I've
fully
hijacked
off the
it.
rails at this point, but hopefully we can desperately get to
I
some
watch kids running, and I figured I used to do that quite. Now I have to think I'm going to jog maybe, and they're just running like.
Well, I remember when I realized that the concept of like, oh, well, when I'm an adult, I'll understand what's going on. And then like after some point during like college or after college, you realize that the whole concept of like figuring it out is a lie. Like there is no like point where you just know things and the world makes sense. So now I feel like at least I learned that. So I'm not surprised when I'm 60 or 70 and still feel that way, because I don't think there's ever going to come a point where there's a crystallization and just an overwhelming knowledge or wisdom. I think if you're lucky, you build up enough life experience that somehow that becomes more applicable if you can remember it in the right situation.
It's getting deep here on the podcast, guys.
If you can remember it.
Yeah, see, there we go. Anyway.
And everything is changing so fast.
So do we want to mention any milestones off the top, or wait until later?
Yeah, we should. I think that we should get into it. That this week, the React channel, which you guys were around when that first started, it was a new idea, just hit 2 billion video views just on that channel this week.
That's
2 billion?
Yeah, just on the React
amazing.
channel.
Does that number even make sense? It doesn't make sense to me.
No, especially because the other channel, like I remember when we hit the billion on the FBE channel years ago, and now I don't even know how many billions, and now the new project from a few years ago already has 2 billion, and also is crossed 8 million subscribers just on that channel as well. And that was just a new thing a few years ago.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The reach of what you guys are doing. And I think it's important to point out that it's a React, and you're bringing the audience can react, and they can subscribe, and they can give you feedback, and they can make requests, and that's new. That's
it seems like so simple, but it's not something you could have done.
Yeah. It's not like a traditional talk show or whatever, where you got the people up there and the other people out there with no inner reaction.
Yeah, but to everyone listening, those milestones mean huge amounts over here. Like the numbers, I always say the numbers don't make any sense, because they just don't. It was hard to get to this point, and the reality that we really crossed 2 billion views and 8 million subscribers in the same week on something that was just an idea a few years ago for a new channel, and all these new shows that all of you have been making now. It's incredible. Like we can't thank you guys enough for the support, because that's a pretty close community there that would want to go and support.
This is why we go
something.
on and on about the audience.
Yeah.
Because the numbers underneath that video on YouTube, even for an Elders React episode, doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to anybody. Locke, does it make sense to you? Doesn't make sense to Locke either.
I guess it makes sense when people start recognizing you.
We have a
That's going to segue.
Yeah, we have a question. I do want to give a quick teaser potentially for next week. I'm not going to go into it, but is it next week?
I think it's the week after next.
Okay.
August. Yeah, second week of August, right?
Yeah. So if not next week, an upcoming week, we are going to be doing one of the podcasts that we've teased previously.
So we've made jokes about we should start 18 different podcasts, and we keep talking about like we'll get an idea and say let's make a podcast for that. Well, one of them is there actually going to be a podcast.
It's going to be kind of in place of this podcast that week. But anyway, more to come for those who have been following and listening to previous episodes. So we're going to get into questions from the guests now, because we've been rambling a lot ourselves, mainly because of how excited we are to have Rock and Vera here, if you haven't figured it out yet. But we're going to go straight to Twitter, because Vera just brought this up. Aesthetic Monkey over on Twitter.
Good name.
Great name. Aesthetic Monkey.
Okay.
To this day, I still can't spell aesthetic, but I can read it. Thank you, autocorrect. Do you guys ever get recognized?
I'm sorry, what was
Recognized.
that?
In the real world.
Yes.
Have you ever been recognized?
Yes. And it always surprises me. I was even recognized in Amsterdam.
So what is it like? Tell us a couple of stories of how do they stop you? What do they say?
Or where were you? Or
I was in a drugstore in this little, actually not Amsterdam, Leiden, little town in Holland. And this young lady comes up to me and says, "Aren't you Vera from Elders React?" I was thinking, what? And she wanted to have a picture taken with her. That's usually what happens. They want a picture. Oh, I do have a very funny story.
Oh, tell it.
If I can. Okay. Catherine and I were on a murder reenactment thing
Okay.
in way out in East LA, beyond East LA. And we got there early before the rest of the crew. And of course, we have to go to the restroom. Where do you go to the restroom? There's this sleazy-looking gas station across the way. And we sort of looked at each other and walked up to the gas station. And there's this Mexican mafia-looking guy. Said,
Probably wasn't in the mafia.
well, that's what we thought. Can we use the restroom? He said, okay. So we did, and we come out. Then there's 4 of them standing by the gas pumps. And we say, oh my God, are we in trouble? They come up to us and say, are you Catherine and Vera from Elders? Honestly.
Amazing.
That is a beautiful, beautiful story. Locke loves it. He's laughing.
And Rock, have you been stopped as well?
Yeah, and it's amazing from locally. Somebody will shout out my name, "Hey, Rock," and I know where it's coming from because I do not know you. Very flattering. San Francisco at an airport. You see 2 girls giggling and then looking, and I'm going, oh, I bet you they're going to come over. And sure enough, they come over and say, can we get a selfie with you? Yeah, and it's very flattering. Minnesota, just out in the middle of nowhere, really. I spent some time with my brother hunting. He's got a cabin. And boy, you wouldn't believe it in the midst of, seeing, we're so used to crowded streets and crowded this, and you can count cars, by the hour over there. And at a McDonald's, a guy looks at me and says, are you Rock? And I'm going, in this little town in Minnesota at a McDonald's place? You gotta be kidding.
It's so global. It's around the world. It's in every city. It's that's the thing that gets me the most is how it's everywhere. Everywhere.
It amazes me how many people it touches.
And what surprises me is that a lot of people have recognized that are young people. Why young people watch elders react?
I'll tell you, I'm sure that a lot of the 5% listening to this is going to agree with me. We get that all the time. When you ask what's the favorite show, it's almost always Elders React. And I think that it's a fascination of seeing their world through a different perspective. And I get a lot from talking to them and some family we get in about how it also makes them, and I love this part, it makes them want to call their grandparent and talk to them.
I get that too.
Yep.
I periodically I'll read the comments, and it is very flattering to have so many kids want to be my grandson and my granddaughter. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine you guys get quite a lot of adoption requests in the comments of the episodes.
Yeah.
What's next? What else do they ask them?
Well, this is a very popular question, so I apologize because a lot of people asked it. But over on Twitter, Ane44, what has been your favorite episode to film? Is there a specific episode that stands out, or at least maybe like a series overall that's just kind of your favorite thing to do?
That's so hard to answer, but there's one that I really, really liked. It had to do with virtual reality, but we stepped into it.
Oh,
was that the
remember.
HTC Vive episode?
The one with the big goggle thing.
But you were standing up and walking, right?
Walking, and you actually feel like you're in it.
Yeah.
And there was this long hallway, and then there were people behind us, and I thought that was so fascinating, like another world I would never have dreamt of.
Was it a scary game, or was it just?
It was 3 different things we saw.
Yeah, I think this was the
One
HTC
was
Vive
we were
episode. There was
painting
you were painting, and you could walk around it.
Right.
And then there was the robot that you encountered,
Yes,
right? And the
then
floor
there's-
fell. And
then there's some animals or something that came around us. I wasn't scared. I just loved it.
Yeah, I remember that one as well. We had just going into an Italian.
Oh, right. That was the first Oculus Rift when the Oculus was new, and we took you to the Italian place. And then there was a roller coaster.
Right, the roller coaster that was broken, and you could see it coming. Yeah. Oh, it was exciting.
So the new technology stuff has been very exciting for when we show you something that is brand new.
Well, you guys are keeping me into the loop, and I'm telling all my friends.
This is a. Oh wait, did that question get cut? There was a question about, do your friends know you're on the show, and what do they think?
Well, they know I'm on the show. They're very puzzled by the whole thing. But some of them depend for me to come home and tell them what's viral, because they rarely watch YouTube.
So you haven't like shown your friends the episodes you're in?
Tell them about it, show them, and then they want to hear what is going on out there, because they don't know.
It's enlightening to the older generation to see that something like this, number one, is possible, and number two, is so effective with bringing in things that are viral. Because I never would have looked into technology or what is happening or who is doing what. You get so much more than news.
Right. And that's part of the thing too that we talked about this a little bit on last week's podcast, that we know that there's so many people watching that a percentage of them like to just watch the video part, like the watching video part, and not everybody sticks around for the questions and for the conversation. Like a lot of people do, but a lot of people also, okay, I saw it, I'm moving on to the next thing. But that's kind of the core of the show, is like that second half of the episode where it isn't just, oh, this was a thing, move on. We're going to now tell you more about it. We're going to try to make you think, we'll give you more information. We don't ever change your opinion, but it's like, all right, that's your opinion. But did you ever think about it like this? And try to have the deeper conversation, because it isn't just, it's news in a new way, but it's also not news. It is just a conversation. So even though I'm speaking to the wrong people, because the 5% definitely watch all of this more than likely, but I always am like, man, are you missing out if you're not watching the entire episodes of these things? Because that's where the good stuff comes, the real conversation.
That was D. Almeida Alexandra on Instagram that asked that question. So thank you so much. Artsy Individual, also on Instagram, wanted to know, do you guys like reacting to stuff from your generation that you're more familiar with, or do you like seeing the new stuff from today that maybe you didn't know anything about? Do you have a favorite between those two, or what are your...
That's interesting. I love seeing some of the things I'm familiar with, but on the other hand, the new stuff is exciting. I'm finding out, it's hard to tell. They're both really... very fascinating.
It's like with the games. I'm not a gamer.
We've made you both play a lot of video games.
I'm definitely not a gamer either.
I usually get killed, smacked, cut up, chopped up and stuff. But it's like there's so many buttons and so many things to deal with. It's fascinating, but frustrating. I grew up before there were computers. I was with typewriters, and then to have all this stuff booming and more and more and more coming. What we're doing right now, it still never ceases to amaze me. So the old stuff, fun. But the new stuff, I can go wacko on. I can go crazy. The games, I'm relatively terrible at, but I have a great time being terrible.
So, it's Faba over on Instagram wanted to know specifically about scary games. Scary games are obviously very popular on YouTube.
Well, here's something I will say about it.
Sure.
Giving you a little insight. Were either of you in the Five Nights at Freddy's episode?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
I think you guys were. So that was the first time we ever had done a quote unquote scary game on Elders React, and we've since stopped being worried about this. But if you guys remember, we had like a secondary email about like, are you okay being in a game that, maybe you have a heart condition or something, because this game might be scary. And we were so concerned and so worried. If you watched that episode, none of you were scared at all. You were like, this is stupid. Why are people afraid of this? So I feel like the scary games don't really scare you guys, really.
No, I didn't find the scary games scary. I mean, considering I found a lot of the movies I've seen but the scary games were not. They were kind of
anything that we've had you play feel like, oh, this is a little bit scary, or not really?
There have been a couple that where you get that pop, where
the jump,
jumps out at you, and you go, whoa! that one got me. Didn't expect that one.
I will tell you that the VR stuff terrifies me, and I haven't almost played it at all. I played a very early game early on for Oculus, where the only thing that happened was an icon showed up in front of me when I wasn't expecting it, like an unlock symbol for a door or something. And I was like, where did this icon come from? None of this is okay with me.
My problem is I'm just a scared person. So I have I'm scared in life. So these VR games are very difficult for me, especially like I don't have like a phobia of it, but I don't like zombies. It's like I can't like watch The Walking Dead even because I just get too scared. And I freely admit it. I don't like scary movies. I'm a softie. I get too scared.
Danny4224 over on Instagram wants to know, Vera, this question for you. Vera, where is your accent from, and is anybody bilingual, I guess, on the podcast today?
Okay, my accent is a mixture. I was born in Yugoslavia. My parents were Hungarian. I grew up in South America, so you figure it out. I don't know. I don't know, and I am bilingual, actually more than bilingual. I speak Spanish, I speak French, I speak Italian, little German.
Whoa.
Impressive.
Yeah.
I know you speak German.
Yeah, school trained. I was with the Army, went to the Defense Language Institute.
I love that I learned that you spoke German because of the Rammstein metal music episode. And that's when we learned Rock spoke German from something he did not like very much. But yeah, Vera, I think that your story, which is so amazing in a lot of ways, has maybe come up on some of the shows. But can you talk a little bit about kind of that journey from Yugoslavia to South America? Because it is amazing.
Well, my parents, we were Jewish, and my parents escaped. It was 1941 by the skin of their teeth. We made it to Portugal, and then on the last passenger ship, they left for Argentina. And the reason we went to Argentina is we couldn't get visas for any other place, including the United States.
Right, they wouldn't take you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's mind-boggling when you think about that time period and the reality of how life is such a crazy thing that these moments in time, you're here right now. Yeah. And how close it was that we were not having this conversation right
Very
now.
Very close. I was 2 years old.
Still, but yeah, it's incredible.
But I mean that they got me out of there. And then we went to South America, first Argentina, and then when Perón and Evita came into power, my father said he'd been under one fascist government and wanted another one. So we moved to Uruguay. And then I came to the United States to go to college, and I've been here since then.
Amazing. And all the stories I've heard about that apartment building with the one phone. And right, wasn't there only one phone for the whole building down there or something?
Yeah. If I had to call my boyfriend, I had to get on the rotary phone, which probably a lot of the kids don't even know what it is, talk to the landlady in his building and say, would you please get him? If she was in a good mood, she might go get him.
But Benny, I don't know if you speak any other language.
So I don't speak any language fluently by any stretch of the imagination, but you
can probably repeat languages that are on like the Disney trams, and
sure. So I know very, very small amounts of Spanish, and my joke with people who speak Spanish when I used to work at the theme parks at Disney. Whenever if I worked at a ride where you hit a button that would open the door and then a bunch of the people would come in to go on the ride, and if they spoke Spanish, right when they hit the button, I would yell out random words in Spanish that I knew in gibberish. So I'd be like, "De los pantalones de mi vida," right as the doors open, so they would laugh. But that's about it. But it's Hebrew that I know the most of from being raised Orthodox. So I can't speak it. I can read it still fully. And if people are speaking it slow enough, I can understand some of what they're saying. But I always can recognize, there's some Hebrew being spoken. Yeah. They said a few words here and there. But that's about it. It's interesting, growing up as religious as I was, the boys are taught like Old Testament Hebrew, for lack of a better term. Like you learn how to read the Old Testament, which is not conversational Hebrew at all. So you learn a lot of words, but no grammar, and there's different classes, but they don't focus so much for the boys. The girls, though, because they're not allowed to learn, that stuff, they are taught all this conversational Hebrew. So my older sister is fluent in Hebrew because she was taught in school, but we were never really taught to speak it fully. So, and you lose it over the years, of course, but I can still read it.
I want to ask a question mainly to the listeners, just because I know there are a couple people from these countries that can answer this question. So you guys can check out for a second if you want. But this one ties into an upcoming question about Japanese YouTubers react. But I have a friend who's half Japanese that taught me like 20 or 30 phrases before I went there, because I always like trying to be a decent representative of America. Like I feel like we have enough bad representation of who Americans are traveling abroad that I always like really trying and really
Make
trying
an
to
attempt. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And so I have for anybody that speaks Japanese, please leave me a comment with how terrible this is. Watashi no tomodachi nihongo skoshi oshiemashita, which is supposedly my friend taught me a little bit of Japanese, which I loved learning because I, again, like getting into it. I'm also wearing a Brazilian hat. If you're listening, you can't see that. But desculpa, eu não falo português. So we'll see if that translates. I'm sorry, I don't speak Portuguese. And then my girlfriend, who's half Korean right now, has been slowly over the past year or two teaching me Korean. So 안녕하세요, 제 이름은 Johnny입니다. Which is what
a show off.
My name is John.
Such a show off. Vera's fluent in all these languages. You don't see her starting to speak different languages.
No, that's because she can actually speak them, Benny. I have nothing but parlor tricks. So she has no need or desire to prove anything. I just love, because the people sending in, we always ask, because we do shout outs at the end of the thing, where are you listening from? And I know for a fact that we have people listening to this podcast right now from
every
Japan,
place we've mentioned.
Brazil,
Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
You
But
mentioning
Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore.
No, but Slovenia and
Slovenia.
Slovakia, both we have people listening from both of those countries.
and probably from that town in Holland that you mentioned, someone's going to say, I live there. Like, it's
That
crazy.
was me she's talking about.
Well, transitioning into some questions about the company, you guys can feel free to chime in, but maybe Benny can chime in on some of these. Wonderton over on YouTube wanted to know, do we plan on ever doing another Japanese YouTubers react?
Okay, so the full backstory on that is, this was time just goes by too fast. I don't remember, 2 or 3 years ago, YouTube opened up, there's YouTube Spaces, which is Google and YouTube fund areas where basically if you have a certain amount of subscribers or take a certain amount of classes, you can use production spaces for free. And depending on what you're doing, like we made Sing It and My Music, which you were time you were there at the YouTube space. Good times. You were with your plunger, right? Classic moment.
What episode is that, Benny?
I don't remember, but he was playing the. It was the metal character in My Music, remembering his former teacher that told him he'd amount to nothing, right? And then he like magically appeared. And you think that it's in his memory, but no, he's like really there magically.
Confront the truth.
So it's season 2, but I don't remember which episode. But you can film there for free, and they were opening them all around the globe. And so there was an initiative at one point, and maybe they still do things like this, where they were wanting to bring top creators from America to YouTube Spaces in other countries and have moments where you can meet the stars of that country and have dinner with them, get to know them, answer their questions, because America with YouTube is always a bit ahead of some of the other countries because YouTube's been here longer. So when you go to Europe or you go to Japan, there's YouTube stars of a certain standing, and sometimes they're really big, sometimes they're not quite as big, but they're encountering things that like we figured out like a year ago that they're now for the first time dealing with a brand or something like that, so questions would be asked about how to scale what they're doing, etc. So it was very, very cool that YouTube invited us and flew us out to Tokyo to go to YouTube Space Tokyo and meet some of the top YouTube stars of Japan. So while we were out there, beyond talking to them and staying in touch with them to this day, we were like, this is such an amazing opportunity. And so we filmed YouTubers React with American YouTube stars, and I think we ended up having some from the UK just by chance here in the office, knowing we were going to go to Tokyo 2 weeks later, and left slots open. And then we had 3 or 4 episodes of YouTubers React that was half American YouTubers and half Japanese YouTubers reacting to the same thing. Wow. So it was
like a very
cool.
international episode.
That's what we wish we could do all the time, but we actually got to do it, but it was very specific scenario because we were flown out to do it. And inside of that, we were trying to pick things that were going to be interesting to get that back and forth. Some worked more than others, but one was Japanese commercials, which to Americans are very weird. And knowing how fascinating it would be to be like, what do the people who live there? So we showed
Japanese commercials to Japanese YouTubers to get their, like, what do you guys think?
And it's a great episode. You have the Americans be like, this is so strange. And then you have the Japanese creators, some of which are saying, oh, Americans probably think this is really strange. Others are saying, I don't understand. Why are you showing me this basic commercial? Because to them, it's just normal. So fascinating stuff. Something we hope to do more of. The best we can do now is VidCon every year. There's so many foreign YouTubers here that we try to bring as many of them on while they're in town, and that's as good as we can get for now.
Yeah. This is something that you guys are guilty of constantly, but Benny, you can ask this you can answer this question. Nikki Grajic over on Twitter, how do we choose what words to censor? And Vera just has a very extensive potty mouth that we're very aware of, because she just likes dropping the F-bombs constantly. Like, that doesn't really make it into a lot of the cuts, but she is
Interestingly, I would say that the elders swear, outside of the kids react, the least. Like, none of you swear that much. There's some here and there, but not much. And I know that, Rock, you would never. Like, definitely.
Well, I'd like to say that, but yeah. I mean,
on the show, though, I don't think it's ever happened.
There's times when doggone it.
Do I swear
no,
on the show?
I was just
So here's the general idea, and there's been evolutions of this over time. And I know that for some people, they very much view the channel fully as a completely family-friendly thing, when you really break it down, it really isn't. Like, it definitely is not like an adult show by any means, but but the shows and the things we talk about, we're very open about it. Even on Kids React, the things that we'll show sometimes, or the conversations that we'll have with children, is not necessarily, depending on who the kid is and how you parent them, that you'd want your 8-year-old to watch, even Kids React. So we are knowing that our demo is a bit on the older side. Like, we don't have a ton of younger people. We're kind of in the 15 to like 30 core, and then there's above and below. So with that, there's a reality of how people talk these days, and the realities of that, and not wanting to be the thing that over censors is something, because in a way that's not representing people properly either if you're over censoring. So it's become very specific to something called TV 14, which is a term in America for certain television shows that I learned a lot about going through the process of making the YouTube Red show Sing It, where we were contractually obligated to be TV 14, and I didn't exactly know where those lines were. And I learned a lot through that process of realizing, oh, there's certain words that I feel bad because it's in front of you guys to say these words. Like, I actually having these moments.
You get blocked earphones, guys. Earphones.
But I learned about what was okay and what wasn't, in terms of, oh, well, if this is something that is okay for 14 and up, that felt like the proper thing for the channel. So that's where we shifted, and we still will always censor the F word and things like that. But when you say things like shit, as an example, that's something that you can say on TV.
Stuff is much more common than
it used to be. Yeah.
Well, I found myself using words that I never, not necessarily in the show, but in everyday life, that I wouldn't have dreamt of using, but they're becoming so common. You don't even
think about it anymore. And so that's where and why, and I know for some people they want everything to be censored even more so, and I understand that position for sure, but that's kind of where we are, knowing that, well, most of the demo is going to be 14 and up. We should be kind of adhering to what television would do, and that's kind of where we are.
Television has got just as much potty mouth as street talk.
It's true.
Yeah.
Cable especially.
Cable is, no holds barred.
Matt Geary over on Twitter, is Lyric Breakdown canceled, or how often does it release? Benny?
Okay, so Lyric Breakdown is not canceled, but it sort of is canceled. So, so what do I mean by that? So Lyric Breakdown was an original React channel show that always had its trouble over the course of the years of it maintaining an audience. And again, every show we make, we talked about this a lot, every show we make, there's a contingent of people that love that show, and they love it so much, and they watch it every week. There's people that miss that advice show that we used to do all the time.
Yes.
But it gets to a point, as the company keeps scaling and growing, of the resources that it takes to make any one show. If the viewership is just not enough, it becomes, well, maybe we'll bring it back, but we got to try something else because it's just going to become more sustainable for the business. So Lyric Breakdown, in its original incarnation, ended up in a spot where it's like, we're just going to have to cancel the show. It's too hit or miss with the episodes. But then Katie, one of the producers on the React channel, had an idea of like, well, what if we did a variation of Lyric Breakdown and did it a little bit different and made it very specifically an elder show? I don't know if either of you have done the breaking down of lyrics yet. In an episode, because it's only been a couple of episodes. Rocky, not done one yet?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so basically they have you read lyrics.
Yeah.
Okay, right, and then at the end you listen to the music. Right. Yeah, you've both done that. So that was new though, where before it was occasionally we might do it with the elders, but then it became very specific of, we're not just going to do one song, we're going to do a collection of songs from the same artist to kind of compare their career, but very specifically with the opinions that elders have.
That was recent for me.
Yes, very recent.
Very recent.
And that's been working really well so far. So for now, that show is kind of back on in this new form that has become an elder-specific show once a month on the React channel on Fridays.
This is a kind of an industry/advice question, Benny, from Mac Chabot. I'm going to say Chabot because my friend spells it, but it could be Shabbat. Twitter. Somebody I know dropped out of college to pursue a YouTube career. What are your thoughts when people do this, Benny?
So that's a good question. I don't like it. But it's the type of thing that is always difficult for me to answer and talk about because I didn't finish college, and it turned out for me that I quote unquote didn't need it. But at the same time, I have regret about it when I look back in the earlier parts of my life of like that's a time in your life when you're young and you can be around your peers and you're actually spent time to learn, and there's not a lot of opportunities to literally just spend your time learning later in life. So especially because it was easy for me, but I just hated it. But so in a lot of ways there is like, hey, do what you want to do and what your dreams are, yes. But at the same time, when it comes to things like pursuing YouTube, and that's anything, pursuing anything at all, not just the arts, it's a big decision to make. And I don't think it's the best idea because you should have options available to you. And if you're going to drop out, it should be because something is working in a substantial way, in my opinion. And it's before you just drop out, I'm going to try because if I don't try hard and then you're not really making a living on it, and then where do you end up? You might end up having to go back. Why not juggle it?
So it's hard for really any of us to sit around and kind of a comment or pass judgment on somebody else's life decision. So I would say it's very much like it's this person's life. Like they can do whatever they want to do. From my awareness and experience around the industry, I can say that YouTube is a very kind of dangerous and hard landscape to quote unquote make it in, especially in this day and age with the ad revenue the way that it is and the volatility surrounding AdSense and everything else. That hopefully he has a big channel or enough of a business there already built that he can capitalize, which is a little bit of what Benny's alluding to. Hopefully there's something stable there versus just trying to kind of create something for a scratch and hope to just make a living off of YouTube alone.
Well, on your side, like, is that something with your kids and with your grandchildren that you're like, you would want them to go to college? Like, is that a thing?
To me, there was no question. You go to college. I'm very surprised to hear you didn't finish.
I know. And I was in college when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
And I never
smart guy.
The child genius.
I was not that. I was so bad at math that there's no way I was a genius. That's how I always answer that. But I talk about how it's a very big deal when you're 15 and in college. But when you drop out, no one really cares about that later on in life. But I totally regret it. But yeah. So like, can you speak to like why you even feel in today's world you should get that education?
Well, I mean, education almost in any form is good. That's a given. But I don't think it's necessarily required for everyone. It used to be, they show you figures like the guy who doesn't go to college is going to make this amount on the average. And the guy who does go to college is going to make this much more because he went to college. That's not necessarily true anymore. And I mean, you're a living example of, hey, you know what? I didn't finish college, and I run a viable company. You've got good business sense. It's taking you to places where you didn't even know where it was going to go. And I think there's that opportunity despite college. Although I wouldn't say, hey, don't plan for it. You need
to have a very healthy work ethic if you're going to drop out of school and then try to make it in whatever field on your own.
But there are other ways to be successful. Going to college doesn't guarantee success.
No, but not going to college also doesn't guarantee success.
That's true. But I think we're always in a state of learning. And there you just do it officially and you pay lots of money for it.
So those are all great questions that were sent in from the fans. If you're listening to this and you're wondering how to contribute, the hashtag is FBE Podcast. If you use that hashtag anywhere, YouTube, Twitter, I don't actually know if I can find the hashtag easily enough on Instagram. I should probably know the answer to that question.
It's pretty easy to do that, John.
Well, I know you can click on it, but like,
no, you can search for it.
Oh, even in comments, in comment replies. That's what I'm wondering.
You can search for in comment replies. Not sure.
See, so anyway,
all right, fine.
Yeah, if you actually just posted a video straight up and that was the only hashtag, I can maybe get your question that way. But certainly Twitter, YouTube, use the hashtag FBE Podcast, and your question might get picked for a future episode.
I think this is the third week in a row that I've said this, but this is becoming the run of the podcast. We kind of do what we do now because
are you guys happy with us? Are the co-producers in the 5% family?
Or you want something else, you've got to tell us. Otherwise, we're just doing based on you not telling us not to.
But Benny, I think you also might be, they might actually enjoy what's actually happening now. And they're like, Benny, stop telling us to change the recipe.
I just want them to engage.
Like what's
There's got to be
happening.
something you can improve. There's got to be
like
something.
What's on the plate?
Yeah.
Keep it coming. Yeah.
So maybe that'll be a poll we actually send out this week in terms of what do I tell Benny, guys? The 5% that are listening right now. Do I tell him, Benny, stop saying that. You guys are going to tell us if you want to change something, or you guys actually have a lot of ideas that somehow I'm not seeing. Either way, use the hashtag FBE Podcast and help us shape the show, because everybody listening and watching right now is a producer on the show, just like I am. Okay, about releases from the past week. Is there anything we quickly want to touch on? Maybe Echo related?
Sure. So we, well, by the time this comes out, it would have been a little more than a week ago. We got to work on a very cool branded deal with a company.
Ready at Dawn
and
Oculus.
And Oculus, which was taking what you guys are talking about, the VR, walking around, but taking it to a whole other level with a technology that really was blowing all of us away. Hard to even describe unless you watch it. And even when you're watching it, it's hard to understand what you're seeing. It was kind of like Tron. It was kind of like Ender's Game, a lot of people were saying in the comments, where basically you go into the virtual reality, but you're all on the same team playing like a kind of sport type thing where you're communicating with each other, playing against other people somewhere else that are all in the VR, and you can see your hands and you can wave and you can do all this
it's
stuff and
like
throw
what
discs
you guys
at each
have
other.
done,
Whoa.
but imagine 2 other elders in the room with you.
And you're on the same team trying to score goals together.
Are we going to get to do this?
Look, I am so upset that set got broken down so fast, because all I want in life, that game and the Star Trek episode we did, the Star Trek Bridge episode, which was another... This is, I know we're talking about VR, but all this stuff is multiplayer VR. So you guys did, I don't know if they've done any multiplayer
Not
VR.
in VR, no.
But imagine that ridiculousness of virtual reality, but now there's also other people in it with you.
Like when you watch that
Awesome.
episode, it starts with like they're training the I think it was the college kids that were in it, and there's one of the people from the game in their office in VR, but you see their body being like, oh, hi, I'm whatever, I'm going to teach you how to play. But they're really there talking to you, and you're both in VR having a meeting, basically. But it's your VR self with them.
It was,
but
the whole 4th floor was cameras, and like huge shout out to, those came out primarily on our RC team, I think, but the production management team and production and post, this was such a huge effort across the company to pull off being able to, it's crazy enough just filming a VR episode, but this was VR unlike anything any of us have
and that's part of what we're trying to do, because we've done things kind of like this here and there. We love the innovation side of things, and like we're obviously a great platform to showcase new technology. So
I think you're cutting edge. You're just right on the tip.
We try to be.
The tip of the spear, always. You're
But
right,
the response to this is why this is kind of in this segment right now, because it seemed like the 5% or the viewers that actually watched those episodes in particular were
that
like
was good, decent viewership.
blown.
They were blown away when they were watching. Like, I can't believe this is real, and that was like, oh, I think we executed this well enough then, because it was hard to even figure out how to present this to be consumed. But everyone was like, "This looks unbelievable," because it was crazy and really
Sounds
cool.
amazing.
And so we've been doing that, and that's part of the continued innovation of things. We're trying to find great partnerships to showcase things new and bigger. We also did a scripted sketch recently in virtual reality where you can watch it on YouTube and like use the mouse to look left and right. But if you wear a headset, it was the sketch was you are on a gurney and after an accident and you're like lying there.
You're the
You're the head.
You're the patient.
And you look down and you see a body, which was Tom from React. It was his body. But you can look behind you, you can look up, down, and the doctor's there with like lights in your face, but like it's all first person, and you find out in the sketch, spoilers if you didn't watch the sketch, but you find out in the sketch that it actually was your wife that was like trying to murder you, and that's how this all happened.
Oh boy.
And then she leaves you for the doctor at the end.
But incredible stuff. If you guys listening haven't checked it out yet, please, I highly encourage you, check out the Echo Arena episode and also the Star Trek Bridge episode. Both, I just sit watching those things wishing, and I know, our teams are so, working on so many things for future programming. I hope one day we're able to revisit some of these things, because I would love to see more of both of those games.
And that's what we want to grow into, and it's tough with space and logistics to be able to have that multiplayer experience, because there's ways, even not in VR, there's ways to like connect computers together and have a whole bunch of elders on one team and a whole bunch of teens on another, and they could all at the same
Elders
time.
versus teens.
Which would be really fun.
Look, you guys already played Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. Like, you're ready. You guys are
those were
so
good,
ready.
Good games. Yeah.
Some of my other all-time favorite episodes of any time the elders are playing any game whatsoever. Call of Duty and
What
all the
we
grand
do to a
thefts.
game. Yeah.
Rock, you sell yourself short, buddy. You are nothing short of pure entertainment when you're put in that situation.
You have a lot of oops is a very common word out of your mouth when you play video games.
Vera.
There's a lot of you do something.
Sure.
Oops.
Because I'm such a failure.
So we're gonna transition over to some shout-outs, I think, Benny.
Is it time? There's
Yeah.
nothing else. I mean, we could do the Macarena.
Oh, dear God. These are people that watched last week and left the, what was the hashtag
Fell
last
metal.
week? Fell metal, because our Full Metal Alchemist figurines fell down during the podcast.
We haven't picked one for this time.
That's a good question. I was thinking like,
So every episode we give a hashtag at the end of saying if you made it, you actually listened to this entire hour. You can let us know by leaving that hashtag in the comments, and then we'll shout them out.
You can tell that if they actually.
Well, they could
no,
skip.
because I can tell you, Benny, this
just-
happened in a recent episode where about 5 minutes into it being live, somebody started leaving
Well,
the
I know
hashtag
people
already.
are skipping, but I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. I try
And I'm
to
like, are you a time traveler? Is this the doctor? What's happening right now?
So it usually something that we talked about.
So maybe Elders VR.
that can work.
Let's use hashtag Elders VR. If you've ever loved seeing the Elders play games or the Elders in virtual reality.
Yay!
You're like, note to producers, Vera wants to play more virtual reality
Yes,
games.
yes, I do.
So does Rock. They both
Fun. Yeah. Oh boy.
Use the hashtag Elders VR if you want a chance at a shout out in next week's episode. So these are all people that watched last week, or not all of them, but a selection of some of them. So we're just going to go around the circle and we're just going to keep going around until we run out of names. And I think the next page is countries, so we'll pause before we get to countries. So thank you so much to Abraham Peralta.
And Abitha Mohan.
Elsa Lockman.
Amber Lee Morgan.
Ane Perick.
And Nicole.
Becky Davis.
Ben Rowley.
Bernice Chu.
Bixie.
Bjarma Mouse.
Close enough.
Sorry about that.
Kamala Hood.
Civic Guard.
Destiny Dimension.
Oh boy. Diamond Pros Productions. I
Good
murdered
enough.
that one.
That's okay.
Diego Ferry.
Good enough.
Good enough. Ferrer.
Doctor Leaves.
Duchess R.
Dylan McMurray.
18 Robbers.
Emily Stenberg.
Epic Narvik 97.
Erica M.
Flavio Corboro Noguti.
Good Cracker.
Jay Crowley, which might be a childhood friend of mine.
Johan Abdon.
John Klein.
Joseph Sutherland.
Joy Walton.
Katha Narayan.
Kendrick Harris.
Kristen Chapman.
Living Able.
Liz.
Laura.
Luna Wagner.
Mama T.
Matei Gianluca.
Maximir Botkovich.
Maya Reeds.
Minyak.
Melissa Pinto.
Michaela A. Or Michelle. Oh, it's probably Michelle. Michelle?
Miranda Cedillo.
Misty.
Naj Renchef.
Uda M. Kim.
Pencil Assassin.
Private. Almost.
Radost Marinova.
Sambat.
Sancha Beth.
Shvani Patman.
Shadow.
Stephanie Human.
Starset Spearman.
Swirtle Turtle.
That Whale Girl.
The Night 108.
Valeria Sandrana.
Wonderton.
ZK. And then over on Twitter, DC Gamer 72.
It's me, Derpy.
Leica La Michelle, maybe? I'll just run through these. Lauren J. White, Mal and Ian, Mellow Cheesecake, Tacos, Cicora, and T. Carampolis. Thank you guys so much for sending in. We are so sorry if you didn't, but leave a comment and there's a halfway decent chance I might see it and reply to this podcast. This is the part where we now shout out all the various countries that are listening to the show that leave us speechless on a week-to-week basis, because there's at least one person in each of these countries that heard everything you guys had to say this week, and it is silly, and we are so thankful and honored and humble, and we can't believe it. So we're going to do the same thing now with people listening from around the world. Algeria,
Brazil.
Bulgaria,
Canada,
El Salvador,
France,
Greece,
India,
Kenya,
Mexico,
Norway,
Oman,
Pakistan,
Peru,
Puerto Rico,
Saudi Arabia,
Sweden,
Trinidad,
USA,
and Zambia. Special shout out to North Carolina, Montana, Ohio, Florida, Colorado, Idaho, California, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, bunch of other states. And if you didn't hear your country listed and you are listening from there, leave us a comment saying, hey guys, we're listening from, and let us know what country you're in, and your country can potentially make the shout out list next week, which is honestly, it's just, we talked about the numbers being silly and don't really make sense to us. That list of countries doesn't make sense to us. Those are people that are listening to you guys right now.
It is amazing. It is
You
really
guys, thank you for taking the time and doing this.
Well, thanks for having us. It's fun. This is
It was really fun. Thank you.
And so many years of the show too, you guys. I don't know. I don't want it to end. It becomes a
time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. Any parting words in terms of do we have the time or no? Are we out of time?
We have a little
Have a
time
little
for
bit of
parting
time?
words.
Like I think I'd love to just hear from when you first walked in the door and kind of did this for the first time, having no real idea what it was going to be, to how you feel about it now. Could you talk a little bit about like from the thoughts in the beginning to where you feel about the show now?
It was comfortable. We were talking out in the lobby together.
And we were getting nervous.
A little nervous. Like, what is
One of
a,
us were getting
what is a
nervous.
podcast? And how are we going to, it's not a react,
So
it's,
one of us
it's
were
real.
getting nervous. Everybody that passed by said, "Oh, good luck with the podcast."
So what about in
They
terms of
really
like?
got something planned
oh
on
my
there.
God.
So I was
What's
meaning
gonna
in terms
happen?
of the first time you filmed Elders React, even like going back to the God, almost 5 years ago or whatever it was.
A long time.
Of
Yeah.
and from that of feeling like what am I doing probably to now you fully understand it more. Like how do you view kind of the last 5 years of how you felt doing this in the beginning and how you feel now?
You know, it's always been an adventure. It's always interesting to see how creative you guys have been, and your whole staff. I mean, it's really an honor to be on the show. When I got friends in India who Facebook me. Dinesh Saini, my favorite fan. I got just a whole bunch of people who I feel close to and I've never met. And it feels like there's such warmth in the comments. It's like, golly, I had no idea YouTube would have such an expansive audience that just goes worldwide. And it's you guys, your hard work.
I'm always curious. What is they going to do today?
Yeah. What's up?
What is something? Yeah, I'm always anxious and curious and happy to come because who knows what's going to happen. Have a hard time convincing people that I have no idea what I'm going to see.
And it's such an adventure because it's like
It's wonderful.
the stuff that's viral. I probably wouldn't even hear about it unless we
I
were
wouldn't.
involved. Unless we were involved with it.
Yeah.
Because you guys are picking up on leading edge of everything that's gone
when you
nuts.
say you mentioned, it's an honor to be on. Like the honor really is all on this side of the world. Like what you guys, I think, very much representing your generation and the way that all of you do with such integrity. Like I feel like every reactor, but especially the elders, just with all of your life experience, there's just so much to learn. And I've learned so much just from the show now as a more of a viewer than being physically interviewing everybody, but obviously from all the time we spent together, learned so much from you guys. And like, I know I speak for all of FBE of like just the huge amount of respect everybody has for all of you elders, like very, very specifically.
That's very flattering. It really
That's
goes
really-
both ways. Thank you.
Yeah, it does because it's so nice to see it's so nice to relate to young people. Most of my life is older people.
And it's the type of
It's so
thing that
fun
I
to
say a
come in.
lot from doing the show all the time because I've now become friends with all these people that I'm quote unquote not supposed to be friends with, right? Like, you know,
Right.
you guys to me are not older people, you know, you're my friends. And
Right.
that's the way it really should be more. And I think that the dismissive side of growing old is something that we're hopefully helping shed some stigmas about, even from the realities of what you face, what we'll all face as we just get through life. And so I think that it's just a very unifying thing, Elders React.
How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?
There he is again. There he is again.
Well, we're going to end on that philosophical high note. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We hope you've enjoyed the episode, our first podcast with some of the elders here. You never know who's going to stop by each week or which of the three of the brothers and me will be here hosting. But it's an adventure every time. And thank you guys for leaving comments, sending in questions with the hashtag FBE Podcast. And hopefully you'll come by next week. But this has been a joy and a privilege. And thank you guys so much for coming by the show.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It was really fun.
All right. Thank you. See you later, guys. Bye.
Later. Bye-bye.